Good afternoon, and thanks for joining our webinar today. I'm Larry Van Tassel, Director of the Center for Ag Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Remember to find an archive of our past webinars, as well as a schedule of upcoming webinars in our Thursday series on our website at cap.unl.edu. Today, we'll highlight some essential tools that assist crop producers in tracking costs and in budgeting to assist you in making better on-farm decisions. Today, we'll also introduce the newly published 2023 Nebraska Crop Production Budgets, which can be used as guides to create personalized enterprise budgets, to estimate cost and to estimate cash and economic costs, as well as yield and price break-evens and more. The 2023 enterprise budgets are available to download into the Agricultural Budget Calculator program, where any of the budgets can be easily modified to fit individual farm or field situations. Today, we'll highlight some features built into the program, including a risk module where price and yield exposure scenarios can be calculated at various levels of crop insurance coverage. Presenting is Glennis McClure, Farm and Ranch Management Analyst with the Center for Ag Profitability. Glennis leads the annual development of UNL's crop budgets and plays a central role in the development of our Ag Budget Calculator program. Glennis, thanks for presenting today.
Thank you, Larry. I really appreciate your support and again, your vision as we built our Ag Budget Calculator. And I'm really glad you're on as a facilitator, because I know you can add if I forget to say something important about what we're doing with all of that. So thank you. All right. So yes, I'm going to talk today about our crop budgets. I put together some tables to show you how some things have changed over the years, over the last few years at least. And so yes, we do have those online now. And again, this year we did 84 crop budgets representing 15 different crops across the state of Nebraska. And you'll see there's some links there. So again, our CAP website, cap.unl.edu, and you can go and look under the crop section and see those budgets, and those are posted there. They are also already on Crop Watch. So we cross-post those. And then one of the key things we've done in most recent years as we've worked on development of the Ag Budget Calculator, we refer to it as the ABC program, is that those are loaded into that program now, and folks can go to the agbudget.unl.edu link, create their own account, and download those budgets so that they can easily modify those and look at their own cost of production. So that's really the purpose. And again, the reason we do our budgets is to really provide a guide, but they really are not representative of any individual farm. They're basically, again, statewide type budgets. So here's just a picture of our Center for Ag Profitability, website. If you're not familiar with it, again, that cap.unl.edu, and most of you probably are because you're on this webinar. And we have a lot of our farm and ranch management resources there. So again, if you go to that page where the crop budgets are, I just want to explain that we still have the budgets that we've developed initially in Excel. And then we also have a large document, a PDF document, where there's some introductory pages that explains what some of the work that goes into those budgets. And then now we've also got the ABC reports there as well. So you can click on that and then look at all the different budgets and look. And there's links so that you can actually see what the ABC enterprise reports look like. Today, I'm going to focus really on corn, dry land, and some irrigated budgets. I'm primarily, picking one of each of those, as well as soybeans and some wheat information. So we do have those all. We've got 15 different budgets in our list of crops that we publish. And so just to show you here, we've got the dry edible beans, we've got sugar beets. I guess that's not on the list here, but it should be. Sugar beets was also for our folks out west. as well as wheat is on the list. It's just not showing here actually. So anyway, you can see that there's quite a variety, but we actually have about 25 corn budgets and 10 soybean budgets. So we do a lot of work with that because actually corn's planted in just about every county in Nebraska. So it's pretty prominent. And so we talk quite a bit about that, of course. All right, so just to summarize, I took all of our budgets. So our dryland corn budgets, again, if we looked at all of them, we'd look at about 150 bushel average yield. And then we do have some that are less than that and some that are more and so on as far as dryland goes. But just from our 2023 budgets, we do present information on the total cash cost per bushel and then economic cost per bushel. So you can see we're looking at 342 and then 498 on the economic side. Again, the economics cost per bushel is really a total. It's a total, and it does include some non-cash items like depreciation and opportunity cost of land and your machinery investment. Okay. So then you also see the irrigated corn budgets. There we look at about a 239 bushel average as we look across those budgets through the state. And we're looking at a 338 and a 474 economic cost per bushel. So that does include the irrigated costs, but also again, because we have a larger yield potential, we're looking at a cost per unit a little bit less. So then also the dry land and irrigated soybeans, you can see 47 bushel from the dry land, 73 bushel average on our, we looked at all of our irrigated soybean budgets. And we've got the cost of showing here, $697, $642 for cash, and then economic over $10, about $10.50 or more there. Okay, so that's really jumped up there. In our wheat budgets, we've got dry land and irrigated budgets, again, 62 and 98. And as you can see where we're at with those costs per bushel. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail then and look at some of this. So this chart then shows from basically we're looking back 6 years. So we've got in the dryland budget 145 bushel. This is a dryland budget number 23. Okay, so that represents 145 bushel, and we've got, you can see how cash costs have changed up to the 330 level for this budget, and the economic costs have changed up to the 455. All right. And then I've just put some categories of expenses in here to show you again how things have changed with that. Obviously, our materials and services, especially fertilizer and some of the crop chemicals, have come up in price pretty heftily. And then also even field operation costs. When you change your fuel costs, and of course, we also have to consider that equipment costs haven't gotten cheaper. We actually have higher field operation costs. And then the land, we use the opportunity cost, or we use the information from the Nebraska Real Estate Report in our crop budgets. And of course, those figures have jumped up in recent years as well. Okay, so I show here if we have what our break-even yields would be based on prices. And again, these prices that I'm using here are the harvest insurance prices. And you can see how those have changed through the years. So they may not actually be, of course, what you've marketed your crop at, but this just gives us an idea of where we're at with profit margins and break-evens. Then you can see similar information here on the irrigated corn budget number 33. That's actually electric pivot budget, and we have a 275 bushel yield there. And you can see how the cash costs and economic costs have changed over the last several years. And again, we're looking at a pretty good profit margin if we utilize that 680. Basically, I think the insurance price, actually, this should say 686, and you'll see I've got that on some of the other slides. So I saw 680 as one of the prices, but 686 is also a figure that I've seen. So here's just a picture of that to look at. Again, a little bit of a breakdown on how fertilizer and pesticides are actually here also in this materials and services, but you can see how really what's made the most, I guess, increase in cost probably are in the area of the materials and services. Our field operations have increased, as well as our land opportunity costs. And I've got that basically for the last 4 years in this chart on this dry land corn budget. And then with the irrigated budget, and we did change numbers. We added another budget in a couple of years ago, so that kind of changed our numbers. So that's why I note that as such. But I'm still picking those to compare how the changes have gone. So again, you see some kind of the same picture here where our materials and services, that cost has really blossomed over the last few years, last couple of years actually. Okay. So then we switch over and let's look at a soybean budget, number 59. That's actually a dry land budget, and it's a 50 bushel yield. And then we've got the cash costs now. You can see where that's ended up and where we're at. If we use that 1381 harvest price, we're looking at a profit margin of 449 per bushel, and the break even at 34. So we had 50 bushel expected yield. The break even would be at 34. And then wheat. You can see there how costs have come up as well. Here's that picture of the soybeans. Again, we've got the pesticides in with the materials. We don't add fertilizer in on our budgets. Some may do some of that, but we don't have those included in our budgets. Okay. And these, we always post our webinars. And so if you want to look back at these, you're certainly welcome to, or let us know, I guess, if you would like the slides at some point in time. We certainly can send those out. I'd also like to mention that I think Ryan might be posting in there. We just, I guess it's dated as of November 29th. An article about the crop budgets, and there I've also got some other charts so you can kind of look at comparisons over the last several years for actually all of the corn budgets, all of the soybean budgets, and the wheat budgets. So those are in that article, and so I think Ryan might be posting that in the chat, or if he hasn't already. So thanks, Ryan. All right, so here I just grabbed a picture. This is actually from our Agriculture Budget Calculator ABC program. So as I put in that corn number 23 budget, we actually have some of this kind of reporting comes out. And so a lot of people like to look and see what's that breakdown of costs. And so here again, the materials is the higher cost. Ownership, yes, our land and our investment in our equipment. We've got overhead, fuel costs, and so on. And so with corn, and this is the picture of the soybean. So I just wanted to show you that we actually have this type of picture. We've actually got some of this in. As you develop your budgets using the Ag Budget Calculator, we've got that there, along with a lot of other features that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Okay. So income minus cost equal profit. All right. So yes, we talked about this quite a bit last year in that, yes, the costs were going up. We really saw a big jump, especially as we put together our budgets last year for 2022. We usually do some research in those costs on that September, October timeframe. And so after that, we really saw a jump up in costs. People were really concerned. We know there was some limited supply in some cases on different fertilizers and pesticides and so on. So folks were really kind of contemplating, how they might change their cropping, systems or whatever based on that. But we also want to remind people that we've seen pretty good revenue on the revenue side of things. So the next few slides, I'm going to talk about, kind of look at the picture of how the margins have changed based on all of our costs. I do want to mention before I forget that I really appreciate the help of Bob Klein, who is a crop specialist out in the North Platte Center. We work really closely together to put together the budget information, and he does a lot of the research actually and checks on those prices and so on. We also have a good team of folks in the crop specialists, extension crop folks across the state that provide information and do some review on those budgets. So we appreciate all of the team's effort in getting these things together. All right, so here is a dry land corn budget number 23 again, just picking that budget. So I've got the cash costs on the blue line, economic costs are the red line. All right, our prices Now, again, this is based on the crop insurance harvest prices. So that would be the December futures in the case of corn and soybeans, December or November futures in soybeans, December futures in corn in the month of October. Okay, so that's where we come up with the 686. All right, so then here's the profit margin per bushel. And so you can see how that has changed. So again, looking back to that, we were really, just kind of, getting along somewhat in the 2017 to 2019-20 area. And then we really jumped up from there as far as our profit margins go. And again, this is that budget and that picture of that. Okay. For the irrigated corn, here's how that looks. So we actually had we had a couple of years of negative profit margins, as you can see. Okay. And now we're up quite a ways. So we've got profit margins here. If we look at that 686 figure, we're at the 338, sorry. And so I thought, well, looking at 2023, if our costs are somewhat, in the ballpark here, and we look off of the economic or the total cost per bushel, and let's say we were figuring a 686 for 2023, we'd be looking at a $2.55 margin. So there would be a drop, okay, because again, those costs have gone up as we figured those for 2023. And this is the dry land soybean budget. So again, that November futures in month of October, 1381. And so again, if we plug that in over here, we'd be looking at a profit margin. I guess my figure's not right, but you can kind of figure that out. So 1381, minus the 1013. Okay, so our top profit margin would drop because we've got almost 80 cents difference in our economic costs from 22 to 23 in this particular budget. All right. And then for wheat, here we are with the wheat, kind of what that picture looks like. So again, our profit margins, we've really, those have really come up. Our prices, we've had some big jumps in our price for sure. So if we had a crystal ball to know what the scenario looked like for next year, that'd be great. But again, one of the things that I want to really emphasize here is as your costs have come up, especially in these last few years, basically your investment is greater. And so your risks are really greater. The risk on the yield side, the risk on the price side really have grown. Okay. So I always like to remind people why it's good to know their cost of production. And one of the first things I think about is for marketing purposes. So what price do I need to receive to cover my cash and economic or total costs? Okay. And then comparing, you can use it for comparisons. We can analyze net returns. If we put in a base crop budget into our ABC program now, we've actually got a crop comparison module where you can, if you've got your base crop and you've got some other enterprises kind of figured out, you can actually compare what those net returns might be. And then also looking at, obviously we've got decisions to make sometimes in machinery purchases versus custom hire versus, let's say, sharing machinery, that kind of thing. Cost and utilization of labor, marginal productivity of crop yields. Okay. So I note here that we had, and I think Ryan might put that link in the chat as well, that we just did an article several weeks ago on 11 key management decisions made easier with enterprise cost and analysis. So Dr. Van Tassel led the way on that, writing of that article. And so what we really did is we kind of looked at our ABC program and said, hey, so what are the things we can do with that program now in making some management types of decisions? So again, as our costs have come up, our financial risk exposure associated with yield or market changes has really also increased. So our risks have increased. Okay, so I just want to remind you, what do you need to be able to build these budgets? All right. And so first off, of course, you know your cropping system. You know how you grow your crop. And so, and you know what that is. Again, we'll be adding livestock into the ABC program, but we do also have livestock budgets already on our CAP website. We'll be moving some of that into our ABC program here within the next several months, and hopefully do some training on that in the 2023 timeframe. But also, again, you'll have annual rates and prices. So, you know, you kind of will figure like, here's what fuel's going to do for this year. Here's what my interest rates are going to do. So we actually have you plug those in. So again, this is information that you need to basically build budgets. Again, with crops, you'll know you know your field operations, you know what machinery you use, that information can be plugged in so that you can determine cost on your field operations, including labor, fuel, repairs, depreciation, opportunity costs, and so on. Same way with irrigation systems. Again, we've got depreciation costs and you know, other associated costs for operating that system. And so those are items that get plugged in, as well as material inputs and service costs are your seed, fertilizer, feed, and you know, again, how much seed you use, how much fertilizer you use. And so that information gets plugged in as part of those costs. Again, we don't want to forget the general farm overhead expenses. So those should all be included. We use a $30, generally we use a $30 per acre overhead expense in our budgets that we provide, but your overhead cost might be a lot less than that, or it could be a lot more than that. And so in the ABC program, you can actually add in more precisely what those costs are, and then split those over your acres or your livestock enterprises as such. One of the things that's really nice about our ABC program now too is you can add in your revenue projections. You can say, oh, well, I'm going to figure on, you know, so much for this corn crop for this next year. Eventually we'll have a marketing plan, kind of, whereas let's say you do some pre-pricing, you can enter as you go along there, but that's one of the things that'll be yet to come. But really, I like to mention to folks that if you're doing all of your enterprise budgets and you have those in the system, we have a whole farm section then where you can pull those all together, and actually you can run a report that's like a projected profit and loss statement or income statement. So you can work with that, you know, in that system. So just a little bit, there's a few slides here now about the program specifically. So you can create your own program account. Again, here's the link, agbudget.unl.edu. And so what you need to do there is, again, enter your email and create a password, and that account is yours and yours alone to use. So you can, you know, kind of just test some things out, work with some of our budgets, that kind of thing. You can actually just start from scratch and build your own budgets, or you can download one of our crop budgets. Remember, all 84 of our 2023 budgets are now loaded on that site, and they can provide a nice guide to you to walk through and say, well, here's how I would change that. Again, remember, we would have machinery included in there, but that machinery may not be anything like what you have. Okay, so you would want to go in and put your own information in, and so you can see what those costs might be on your side of things for machinery. And of course, inputs, you may not use the same kind of chemicals or fertilizer that we have listed in our budget, so you would change that. So again, you save those budgets into your account. You can go back to that account whenever needed to update. And what's really nice about this is I also want to mention that we have the duplication features built into ABC. So again, if you build one crop budget, let's say you're looking at one farm or field, or let's say you do all of your corn or soybeans together, you know, you can do that, and then you could actually duplicate that and then go in and duplicate it however many times, because a lot of times our farms and fields can be somewhat different. We might own some, we might cash rent some, we might crop share some. And so you have different things, or you may actually do a little bit different operations on one field versus another, that kind of thing. So once you have a base budget built for a certain enterprise, again, you can duplicate those, and you could actually have, let's say, 10 different corn budgets. And then we pull those all back together in this whole farm section of the ABC. I just like to show you that again. Here's like where I have some crops for 2023, and in my account, I've got alfalfa on the home place, corn at the Jones place, and so on, all the way down Okay, so again, this is an area that I look at. It's called the managed enterprise area. I can edit it. I could go to my field operations. I could run reports. Or let's say I drop down one of the university budgets, work, change it, duplicate it. I can actually delete as I need to with these budgets. This is just a screenshot. And then here is a field operations screenshot where, again, we're listing where you're basically putting in information on the pesticides used, the amount applied, those cost of those, your machinery. Let's say you have that custom sprayed or done. You can put that cost into the program. And so this is just a list, and we asked everyone to enter, again, when they're doing this. So it just kind of keeps things in order as to sort of your procedures with your field operations. This is just a picture. Again, these are the items that we put in under our operation details. So we actually say who does that work. So in this spray herbicide case, Dad helps us on the farm. Dad usually does all the spraying. Okay. I've got Dad value, his labor time is, whether we pay him or he's unpaid, we can put some value in for his time and show that as part of our costs. All right. And then we would enter the power unit that he's using, the implement, and also the materials that go into that spray herbicide. Here's just a picture of that would look like continuing on there. In the materials section, here's the different, in this case, pesticides that would be used or the chemicals that would be used in that operation. Okay. And then like here is the Acuron, how much would we put on? Again, when you pull down one of our budgets, you'll see what we have included for cost. And again, your cost may be different. You may apply a different rate, but you can see the details of what we have included in our crop budgets if you're utilizing the university budgets. This is just an example, a screenshot actual enterprise budget report. And this is the 2023 budget. And so we have, again, I put the 650 figure in for the corn revenue. And I've got the seed all the way down and all those costs down to total operating costs. Now I can expand the details so I could actually see the details behind all the pesticides in that list. But for this report, I didn't do that. Okay. And then this continues on to show the ownership and the land opportunity cost, real estate taxes, and so on. So we actually get a total economic cost. And then based on my 650 price, here's our net return above total cost. So that's, again, what one of those reports would look like in the ABC program. I really, really like this report for a lot of reasons. This comes off also as part of the report for each enterprise. So again, this is that corn, 150 acres, 145 bushel yield. But I've got here all the different field operations. So and again, anytime it's marked UNL, that came off of one of our budgets. So we were figuring like 535 on the spray fertilizer, the planting, no-till cost, all the way down to combining, carting the grain, and so on. So we were looking at a $91.25 field operation cost in this scenario. All right. So what I use this a lot. I actually work with the custom rates information for CAP as well. And I have people call me and say, well, what should I charge? What should I charge if I do the neighbors, if I, combine for the neighbor, plant for the neighbor? So actually you can put your information in on your equipment and we can actually look at this type of thing and see where you are with your costs. All right. So this is pretty close to what our custom rates showed. But again, if your costs and I've punched in some combines and some headers, and I've seen costs, in that 50, 60 on up range in some cases. Okay. So depending on what you have, how many acres you cover and so on, your costs could be quite different. And so I always tell people you really shouldn't do it unless you're covering your costs. And that includes labor, fuel, repairs, depreciation, and opportunity costs. So I think this is a great feature in again, making some decisions, if you will, on, what is my cost going to be if I buy that new combine? Okay. And that type of thing. So we do have some analysis features built in. And I really like, again, the break-even analysis. We can look at the break-even crop prices, break-even crop yields. This is just an example, again, of that 145 bushel yield corn budget. And we're looking at here to cover total economic costs, operating and ownership costs. We had a 455 cost. And then we can actually change this here up or down. Well, basically we'd say a 20% change, and you can see a negative 20% of yield change would drop my break even to a 568. Or let's say I do better with my yield, this is where I'd be at my break even. So we can toggle between looking at prices and yields. And we can also look at covering cash costs or economic costs. Now, there were some years where we just really were able to cover cash costs. So right now, though, again, we're with prices the way they are at this point in time. In general, we're covering our economic costs, which is really good because you want to do that in the long run. You really want to cover those economic costs in the long run so that you can reinvest. I also have here shown, we've got the buttons. This is the break-even analysis one. We've got a sensitivity chart built in. We've got, as I mentioned earlier, we've got the crop comparison break-even module in. We also have a risk analysis, and I'm not going to go into detail on that, but I really wanted to share with you what this thing does. So let's say that budget was, I'm in Gage County, so I'm in the Southeast Crop Reporting District here. And so here's my 145 bushel yield that I'm figuring on for this budget. The NASS average is 144.1 for this crop reporting district. And then Dr. Corey Walters in our department, had some vision and worked with this, and really appreciate that. But he actually did some research and went back to say, in that crop reporting district, back in 2002, really was the regional low. So we had 53 bushel yield back then. Okay. So then we can click here, and then we could go in and plug in a scenario of, let's say we have a 70 bushel yield, not 53, but we have a 70 bushel yield, and we can plug in what those crop insurance projected prices would be, and also pick a level of crop insurance so that we can take a look at then when I expect to make so much with this, with a normal yield and the price is at 650 or so, I've got that figured out. But what happens if it drops to 70% or 70 bushel and I've only picked like the 75% federal crop insurance coverage? Okay. So we've got that feature in here, which is really, really nice. We can look at yield exposure values and price exposure values. So again, what we're trying to do with the work that we do with these budgets and this ABC program is to help people make some decisions so that they can reduce their potential risk. All right. So I just want to finish up here with some comments on the ABC program, and maybe Dr. Van Tassel has some things to add. But so as I mentioned, we can customize our enterprise budgets using the program. Much easier than using our Excel files that we used to use, and especially because of the machinery costs and the differences that we see with all of that. And we really have tried to make this thing user friendly. So I do ongoing training sessions. I'll meet in person or online and help people get started with it. And so take a look at our CAP website and the ABC, and I'll show you that link in a minute. But we do have the training sessions sort of ongoing, so folks can get started with this. But again, we have reports in there with cash and economic budget reports. We have a revenue section, as I've mentioned. I just showed you a little bit about the risks section and some of the analysis that we have. We also have a way in here to reconcile expenses and overhead. So in the program, as you put in your machinery information, we do have the Association of Ag Engineers formulas are in the background. And so it's going to help you determine the salvage value on your usage and also repairs, even fuel efficiency based on power unit size, and so on. And so it'll say, as you do, let's say you do all your budgets, and it says you've got, you're going to have fuel expenses total of, let's say, $30,000. and you can say, I really think that's probably going to be a little less than that. You can actually go in and reconcile and say, let's say it's 25,000 and back that figure off a little bit. You could actually change that and then spread that new cost or that reconciled cost over your different enterprises. So we've got some of those features built in. And as I mentioned, you can put in some detail on your overhead expenses. And we do that in the whole farm reports area as we're pulling all of our enterprises together, which is really nice. And actually cash flow, we've got a full-time developer that's really been great to work with. And we are really close to having that cash flow up online. In fact, in the next few days, it should be there. And so that's actually going to be a usage report of like, when do I use my seed and how much, what's the cost of it? All my chemicals, even some revenue you'll have in there, but we're setting that up. So we'll have basically 16 months. So we've got some prior September, October, November, December, because we've got the folks that are doing planting in the fall, let's say cover crops, wheat, those kinds of things. So we've got some of that, but then we also have the 12 months from January through December. So you'll be able to actually then say, okay, here's all of my costs. They're there, but I can actually move those around on that sort of spreadsheet, and then generate a report that's an actual cash flow from that. So that we'll probably do some specific trainings on that as we get going with that cash flow. And as I mentioned, we'll be working with the livestock budgets here coming up. So I've got here our website, tap.unl.edu and ABC/ABC. So you can go in and get more information. We've got some tutorials on there. Again, the program's been advanced. I'm going to be updating those as we go along. But we do have the training sessions that you can find there to learn more about the program. And I'll be adding more training sessions there as well. And then again, just go direct to the program. If you'd like to just hop right in and start using it, you're welcome to do that because it's free and it's open for folks to use. Any other comments or questions do we have?
All right. Well, thank you, Glennis. Great job there. Again, just to reiterate, the main purpose of the ABC program is to assist producers in their decision making, give them some data on which to base their decisions on rather than just a guess or a gut feeling. So we do have a couple of questions here, Glennis.
Okay.
See if I can get it to come up here for me. First one is the risk section where we would find if it is better to plant dryland corn, even if we think the crop will fail. We live in Southwest Nebraska and have had 6 inches of moisture since January 1.
Right. Yeah, I would say it would be. Again, I would look at, you could, go ahead and you really need to build your enterprise, build your corn budget, and look at, again, consider all those costs, what those are going to be for you to work on that production. And then, yeah, the risk section, then you could take a look at what would be the crop insurance. We'll be updating those crop insurance prices get updated then in late February, early March, and so if you have an idea of what that might be, you could do some figuring with that. So keep in mind that risk section right now, there will be some updates yet as the crop insurance information comes forward. But then you could pick your level of federal crop insurance and take a look at what that might do for you, depending on, again, you might estimate that crop to be a little lower in yield. And then, look at that worst case scenario of what you may produce or not in that. So yeah, that is the area where you would kind of take a look at that and what could be my coverage. Take a chance, and you've got a lot of risk, obviously, or a lot of people do in Nebraska with the drought situation. So definitely we're blessed to have crop insurance to hopefully that stays and helps, and again, it makes a difference too if the prices are good and those crop insurance prices stay well. Again, what's your premiums? You punch in your premium in there too. So that's a cost that has to be considered. So, okay.
Thank you, Glennis. Anything you can share as far as some of the comments of producers that have utilized ABC so far? What have they found useful? What have they enjoyed? Anything on that?
I think for the most part, I've had people say that it is fairly intuitive. So some folks have just dove right in and started working with it and not really gone through too many training sessions. I do have Q&A sessions. So even if you're one of those that just dives in and you say, oh, wait a minute, I'm not sure how to handle this, you can jump on or just send me a note or whatever. So we can kind of deal with your question. Because I know this is prime time. Here we are, December 1, and we're starting to plan ahead for next year. So this is prime time when hopefully a lot of people are using it.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's been a widespread interest. It really has been. I had someone not terribly long ago send a note and say, I used the budget program to develop several budgets, and I was able to go out and buy, I don't remember what it was. It was quite a few acres. So he actually used this as a planning tool to make some decisions and actually buying some more land. So it has been pretty diverse. I know there's a lot of people. I think one thing that's nice, now with the whole farm, as we've developed that, is that a lot of people are actually adding in cover crops. And so, if you've got your base crops and then you add in your cover crop costs, again, that should, you can add those in and then pull those together in the whole farm to kind of see what that whole situation looks like with your cover crop expense. But then there's those questions about, well, if I do cover crops, what are those benefits? How do I change really what my overall cost scenario is based on the cover crops? What are the benefits that I'm getting from that? And again, the research and the jury's kind of out on that. And it really depends on where you are and all the conditions, all the weather conditions that we have. But that's one of the features that we've built into this. So.
All right. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions right now. So Glennis, thank you so much. Again, I think you just made a great point that this is the time of year when you'd really want to check into the enterprise budgets. It looks like we just had another question come up quickly. Glennis, do you have a budget for field pea production?
We do actually. Yes. Let me look here. It is, well, it's a panhandle budget, no-till. It's number 56. So if you look at our budgets, you should be able to find that there. Okay. So that'd be good. You could download that and you could actually go in and put your own information in. Just kind of take a look at what we have built into that budget.
All right, great. Well, again, Glennis, just to reiterate, this is a great time of year to be getting in and taking a look at projected budgets and costs and where you might be sitting, and also a great opportunity to take a look at some of your upcoming insurance decisions that you're going to have to make over the next few months. So we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. A recording of the webinar will be posted at cap.unl.edu, where you can also register for other upcoming webinars. We would also really appreciate your feedback on the brief evaluation at the link in the chat box. That helps us tell us how well we did today and inform us of future webinars. So again, thanks for joining us, and hope you have a happy holiday season. Thank you.